So I've been toying around with ideas about how to reform my what was the Ox CNC into a slightly different structure, and this is sort of what I'm thinking. We have kind of L bracket here with the linear rail on top and the ball screws sort of to be mounted out to the side here. Then these kind of spaced with a piece of steel box there, and then there will be this what is that, 2080, and then another one bracketed up here. So each of those with the linear rail mounted, and then the ball screw for this axis tucked inside, so then I'll just have some kind of spacers to hold that gap along the back. So the first thing I want to do is fit these SPR linear rails, and I figured that they fit pretty much exactly in the 80-20 slots if I filed down one side of the little nuts that go in the slots. So it was a little bit laborious, and I didn't have enough to fill every hole, but so I kind of did this zigzag pattern. But once right, they fit just right into here. So it's made a very easy kind of mounting choice to reuse these chunks of extruded aluminium from the original Ox. As you can see, I did sort of both sides at each end and then just alternated sides down the length. And this was mounted on top of this L shape that I was talking about. I've got little 90-degree brackets that are holding them in that L position, which I figure gives a decent enough stiffness to the side rails. Oh, we've entered painterly mode. You'll have to forgive me for playing with some of the features of the new video editor license, but you know, we'll come out of this mode in a second. So this is me machining the steel box section that I was going to mount onto the bearing blocks, so you can kind of see the 4 mount holes at each end of that, times 2. Oh, thank goodness, we've returned to the real world. And so you can kind of see on the right hand side there, I've already done one and mounted it, and I'm just trying to attach the bearing blocks onto the second one. It's a little bit fiddly to do this, but I really had to do that setup once. And here you can see, if we pause for a second, the various designs I had for making the end plates for the gantry. That was sort of an initial design, and we changed it a little bit later, which we'll talk about. But I had this chunk of old steel from a TV stand, which was about the right size to just chop up. So I kind of mostly just set to it to try and cut some rectangles out that I would get my original plate design out of. And then you can see here I changed the design somewhat. Requires a lot less material for this kind of section, although I will need extra bits later. But that was me just having marked it out, and you get the idea. Angle grinder, just to rough the shape. Obviously the plan is to put this on the mill to finish it properly. So here we have my strap clamp and 1, 2, 3 block set up. I probably should have just taken vice off of my mill and been able to use the full extent, but you know, once you've got that thing clocked in, it's like, I didn't really want to do that. So I kind of squeezed myself on the end just enough. I could really do with power feed on this table. One of these days I will make a power feed. For now, I'm getting a bit of a workout, zipping back and forward. So I just machined that back edge so that that would be my reference point for all the drill holes. And I knew once I had that reference, I could always kind of come back to it. What I did discover is I don't have quite enough travel on kind of the table in and out to be able to drill all of the holes I needed. But I figured with this one set up, I would drill all of the holes I could, and then I knew I was going to have to kind of rotate this around and reclock it in anyway. So when it comes to that, I can drill those last couple of holes. Now I will say, along with the 2 plates kind of pinned together, I have another plate underneath as a sacrificial, so I'm not drilling all the way through most of these. I'm drilling to a specific depth I know gets me through those 2 holes. And here we just boring out the hole for the kind of the motor coupler section, which needs to be quite wide. So had to break out the good old boring head and step ourselves out to, I think I ended up doing a 25mm hole. I will spare you the 1mm increments and skip to the end. So I was using my calipers as a poor man's way of measuring this hole. Not really ideal way of measuring a bore like that, but it's not a super accurate, it didn't need to be a particular dimension really, it just needs to be wide enough that the coupler will fit through. So having set everything up that way, we now need to transition to the next setup. Just rotated around. I spent a lot of time with the dial caliper, kind of reclocking in that machined edge on the tail so that I could convincingly relocate these last two holes I needed to. Again, lots of cutting a while. And then back to lots of back and forth, milling off what is now the right angle for which will be the bottom edge of these plates. Back and forth, back and forth. I'm just trimming off that leading edge just to be... Okay, so here we are. We've disassembled the old Ox CNC. I've sort of restructured a bunch of things. I've played around with designs. Originally I thought my gantry was going to be straight up like this, but then I realized there's a reason that a lot of gantries that you see are set back, and that is that by the time you've got your gantry and then your router and like everything's hanging off the front, kind of if your spindle is too far off, you've got your spindle way off the kind of the center of the gantry, but also as you come across the front of the machine, the spindle ends up hanging off the front, and as you get to the back, you're missing a load of stuff at the back. So by offsetting it backwards a little bit, that helps. Cut up an old piece of steel from a very old, by today's standards, very old TV stand. There was a nice big plate of steel. Pretty happy with how the machining went. Got hopefully all the holes in the right location. And now it's moment of truth, putting the steel gantry plates on the machine. And spoiler alert, this one's in place, or at least the bottom. I was very nervous about getting all of these holes right so that it would line up. It does. This is the other side. I've already attached the end bearing block for the lead screw. So I'm going to switch out the wooden plate on that side and put the other rack in, put the other layer of the gantry in place, and hopefully at that point we'll be able to see that it is a good and stiff alignment of everything. Yeah, let's get that done, shall we? So I've just got these tacked in place at the moment, so I'll just remove those. These laser cut prototypes were really useful for figuring all the layout out and make sure everything was work. But one thing that they kind of couldn't really do is really double check exactly how stiff it was going to be, because this is such a flexible material by comparison. I was getting kind of racking in the testing, which I'm pretty sure, hoping, I won't get when the plates are steel. But yeah, it can be difficult to tell. So, right, let me just... All right. So, that's just one layer attached. And it seems pretty clear that we're nice and square, and the stiffer side plates are certainly under no real load, eliminating my ability to detect any racking. So, you know, that's a good start. Now, the lead screw is going to go in like this. Now, what I will say is that the I'm intending to get a block of aluminium or something to machine this properly. This is just a 3D printed prototype of that at the moment. What I'm now wondering is, do I have the room? Oh, I do. So hopefully that all lines up nicely. Now, I don't want to press it completely in place yet. In theory, you can press this through and there's a retaining ring, but I say until I have machined this block. This is all just temporary, but at least I know that it will, there's room to get it fitted, so I'll take that out for the moment. Let's put the other layer in.
Give me some pictures from it. Great. Oh wait, there's a documentary on one of their gatherings, right? Like, yeah. Oh yeah, I think I've seen that.
Well, I think that's going to have to do it for this video. There's still obviously a ton more work to do. I am going to be making panels that drop from this gantry plate down to create the bracket for the Y-axis lead screws, which I kind of have an idea on, put a bracket on either end to mount them and maybe something to cover them so that trying to keep detritus out. That'll be on both sides. Obviously I need to make some standoffs for the the X-axis motor to sit sort of here, which I need to figure out once I've kind of got everything fit in place. Next big thing is to figure out exactly what the Z-axis carriage looks like, or I guess the Z-axis, X-axis carriage, whichever way you look at it. So I have some bits down here, which I'm just laying out at the moment. So I have these linear rails on each side, a small ball screw structure, and obviously this. So I need to create some kind of plate that connects all of these together that this will bolt onto, and obviously mounting for any limit switch and such. This whole area needs to fit between these. Basically there'll be this plate will mount here with some blocks that screw it onto these, some kind of mounting for the Z-axis motor. A little bit airy-fairy right now. I do have a CAD plan I am working on. But hey, lots more. I've already got another chunk of this plate steel in the mill that I'm kind of machining to size to be this plate. But that will be probably the next video. For now, thanks for watching. See you next time.